Hello everyone, I'm Barali and welcome to the channel. So, I wanted to talk about the studio update for Guild Wars 2 for ArenaNet, but before I do all of that, let me just kind of talk about the channel a little bit and talk about what's going on, and then I'll get right into the studio update. So, I want to take the time to kind of update you guys on what's going on. So, I've been working on some stuff that I've been wanting to do for a while now. There's a couple of projects that I've kind of put off for like actually years now at this point that I've been wanting to do, one relating to the classes of Guild Wars 2 and then one relating to the regions of Guild Wars 2. Kind of like a mix of different things that I usually talk about. So those are hopefully coming out. And also, if you guys, there's gonna maybe be lag on this. I've been having issues with my recording stuff, with my software. I'm in contact with support. I haven't been streaming because of that, because it's just been really driving me crazy. And the last stream I did lasted about 31 seconds until the program booted me off with an error message. So I'm kind of in contact trying to fix all that, so hopefully we'll get back to that. And then also, if you guys are interested in watching some YouTube shorts, I've been doing some YouTube shorts. I have a new one coming out on Friday. I've been trying to do them like on Fridays or Saturdays or something, just talking about some interesting facts and stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, just make sure you check those out. And then we're also still doing Grandia 2. I haven't been really uploading that many episodes of it, but I do want to get through it because it's super fun, and I have a bunch of other games that I want to play through, so you can go check that out. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with me. So let's talk a little bit about the studio update. So why am I doing a studio update? Why am I kind of throwing my hat in the ring with the, doing all of this? Like, I am not super popular. I'm not one of the big people, right? I don't have a huge following like Mighty Teapot or any of those people, right? And but I think what it does do, it gives me like a little bit of a different perspective. I think being in the like spotlight like those big partners are, I think it kind of gives them, there's a lot of input that they get from other people and even from the studio itself and stuff that maybe we don't see on the surface. And I think it kind of maybe, just, it's a little bit different for me because I'm more casual. I don't raid. I don't go super intense on all these different technical things, and I don't have all this like deep, like I literally just talk about the lore, the story, the characters, and it's just all fun and all that, right? And so I think I have a little bit of a unique opinion maybe when it comes to those things. So today I wanted to kind of give you guys my opinion about what I think the studio update means, and what I think is going to happen for the future of Guild Wars 2. So let's switch over here to actually look at this. So we're going to have it pulled right up, so we'll kind of go through it. So let's read through some of this before the holiday break. So they talk about all the awards that they won, which is amazing. I think that's great. Whether or not that's something that you care about. I mean, I don't care really about those things anymore. I've learned over the years to kind of, even if a game is like has like a billion awards, right, that they have gotten, I might not like the game. It's something very personal for me nowadays. Like, there's a lot of games that I have never played because I'm like, I just don't think I'm gonna like that game. You know what I mean? And there's been many times where I'm like, I thought that and I was wrong. But I think I've learned to just kind of like pick and choose. Also because time is an issue, so, but yeah, so they've won a bunch of awards, which is great, and then they closed the studio, because of the holiday break, right, which is great. I mean, I'm glad that they do that kind of stuff. So, they talk about defining the problem. Since 2021, we've put a renewed emphasis on developing Guild Wars 2. So, for those of you that don't necessarily know, we've had a rocky road a few years ago. There was a lot of issues going on with developers getting fired. There was a bunch of side projects or other projects that they were working on that were all shut down. we don't know really anything about these things. There's like rumors that there was a mobile game, rumors of a Guild Wars 3, even I think there was like rumors of an FPS or whatever. I don't think we have any concrete information on this, but there was a lot of stuff, like the president left, the game director at the time ended up leaving, like all these people left, and it kind of just left Guild Wars 2 in like this no man's land of like the limbo of game development, because no one really knew what was next for Guild Wars 2. So they ended up bringing back some older people that had been with the company for a long time, and they're kind of now the game directors, and they're kind of taking over as the leading people, taking charge of ArenaNet and Guild Wars 2 and what's to come. So that's really cool. They talk about the conclusion of the the Elder Dragon Saga. Oh, and the approach of, ArenaNet has always been this company that has been innovative in the way that they try to innovate on every level, right? And a lot of times it fails, and a lot of times they do really well. Like, you can look at the mounts, right? And that was just like amazing. Or even like the event system, like dynamic events are like huge. I think they're just still such a unique thing that is, that is not used enough in MMOs these days. So I think a lot of times they've done a really, really good job. So yeah, props to them for that. Next phase is simple. We want to deliver content updates in a more timely and consistent manner. So this is a huge thing where I feel like this should be more meme status at this point, because their cadence has changed, and they call it cadence. And it was Mike O'Brien who used that term all the time, was cadence, our release cadence, our release cadence. And the release cadence, they always like, every year they would be like, okay, this is our release cadence, okay, this is our release, and they would change it constantly, and they would not actually like keep up with what the release cadence was. So it just kind of was really silly, because I'm like, okay, you're sitting here talking about release cadence, but you're not keeping up with it yourself, right? And it was just kind of, it was pretty bad. So I hope that they can be on a consistent and timely manner on these things. And they want to do a wide variety of systems and game modes that they want to support, okay? Which is nice, because I know SPVP and I know World vs. World has kind of fallen behind PvE, because that was like, for the last few years, their main focus. So I hope that they can figure that out. And they talk about there's different, they want to give love to everything, I guess. Yeah, so the path forward. The first step toward accomplishing these goals was rebalance how we allocate our development resources. So this is, I think, something that needed to happen. I think there's issues that, they tried to do this, and then they tried to do that, and they tried to do this, and then it's like, when they do this, that falls short, and when they do that, this falls short, right? And it's just like, So if they can find out a way to balance their resources and their teams and the development that they have, like kind of balance it between all the different things and keep everyone happy, I think that'll be really nice. Living World seasons have required the focus of nearly the entire Guild Wars 2 development team, which I don't know if this was ever stated to us. I feel like this is kind of a new, like, we knew that there was, at some point they talked about having 3 different teams. So when they had like 6 episodes, it was like, each team was working on 2 episodes. So if team A was like working on episode 1, they would be working on episode 4, right? And you have team B that was working on episode 2 and episode 5, right? So that's kind of like how they had that. But I didn't know that that was nearly the entire development team. I had no clue that that was as vast as that. Like, I always thought they were smaller, but that's kind of how that is. So there's that. Quality, cadence, again, there is that term, cadence. Make it difficult to simultaneously develop expansions. So I think they're kind of going into talking about that. I think this is specifically for End of Dragons. I think they realized that End of Dragons in some terms kind of fell short on some of this stuff, and that was probably due to them having focused on like Iceberg Saga, and then we had that big thing going on with all the people leaving and blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? And so I think they're realizing that the expansions kind of fell short of what they probably wanted them to be, or at least End of Dragons, I think. In the next phase, we're taking a more balanced approach that will allow us to provide more support for popular game modes. Keyword being popular, as it was pointed out in Mighty Teapot stream. Keyword was popular. So what are popular game modes? I think at the time they were talking about like raids and stuff. And I hope that means they're giving support. I don't really raid. The only time I've raided was on Chicken Nooble streams. I've only done a few of them. I'm not a raider, okay? That's not what I like to do. I'm not all about finding rotations and making sure that everything is flawless. Like, I don't like that whole sweaty gameplay thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I've kind of stayed away from that, but I understand that is very important for the like health of the game and the player base and stuff. So I totally am totally for supporting raids and end game content like that. Quality of life improvements to core gameplay systems like professions, deliver new features, and expand the world of Tyria. So core gameplay systems like professions. This was something that we talked about on Twitter, because in this entire thing, I will tell you, in this entire post, that they do not mention at all. They talk about expansions, they talk about living world, they talk about all these different things, but the one thing they leave out is elite specializations. And we've talked about it on Twitter. By the way, follow me on Twitter. But I think that's a good change. I think we've all decided, the few people that had the discussion, I think we really realized that. I think that is a good thing, because balance has always been such a shit show. There's no better way to say it, but it's been a shit show for Guild Wars 2, the balance that we've had over the years. It's been really crappy, it's not been good, and it's not been consistent, and it's not, it's been up and down, and they promise this, and then they underdeliver, and they promise that, and then they do something completely weird, and and then they promise something, and then we're all surprised because it's actually what they promised, and it's like, whoa, okay, great, right? But then it doesn't stay consistent. So I think that is a good thing, not adding any more elite specializations, because it's going to be crazy. And we have 3 of them for each class. I think that's pretty unique. And when they talk about core gameplay systems, right, like professions, maybe adding, like, there's that term core, like adding more core weapons, right? There's a lot of classes that don't have access to a lot of weapons, like, for example, the Revenant. I think the Revenant, one thing that really, really bugs me about the Revenant is that there is only one core weapon that's long range, and it's the hammer. And it's a really slow, really feels kind of sluggish, the weapon, and it doesn't really feel like something that you can use outside of World vs. World, right? I think it's very good in World vs. World. I have a lot of fun with it when I play it in World vs. World, but I would love to have a weapon that is not specifically one elite specialization, that's a long-range weapon that I can use in PvE, you know what I mean? So adding maybe some other weapons to the core professions would be, like, amazing, and I think that would be something that a lot of people would enjoy, because it would enhance all the elite specializations, because you can use those core weapons on those elite specializations, which means that there's other builds that you can work on, right? So that can shift the game around just as much as adding elite specializations, I think. So they want to deliver new features. That could be really anything, right? Quality of life, that could be things like what we had with the Jade bot that was recently added, photo mode or whatever you want to call it, right? Expand the world of Tyria with satisfying immersive story updates. So again, a focus on story, right? I think ArenaNet has kind of like shifted to their main focus out of all the things is the story, which, I'm biased because I love it. I love the lore and I love the story, so I'm like, yeah, more story, I love it. Okay, what it means for you. Our future expansions will be the backbone of this new approach. Rather than launching an expansion every 2 to 4 years, with Living World in between, we'll be releasing smaller expansions. So apparently, this right here was slightly reduced price and adding additional content for those expansions through quarterly updates, meaning that the next big release is only a few months away. So again, in Mighty Teapot's stream, I guess there was talk, because Grouch was on there, and Grouch was saying that I guess part of it part of them, the reason they're doing this, like getting away from Living World and going with expansions, is because you can't like, uh, you know, advertising Living World is not like advertising expansion, and I think they're looking like expansions is gonna give them more like a tailwind with the MMO community and just getting more people involved. And you know, when a lot of people see like, oh, there's a Living World update, a lot of people outside of Guild Wars 2 don't know what that means. But when there's an expansion, everyone that has ever played an MMO knows exactly what that means, right? So I think that's kind of where they're shifting with this. The release in an expansion cycle is the launch point for a new story arc, right? So we know that, obviously, bringing with the 2 open world maps, so they want to do 2. Now, I think a lot of people were upset about that, which I just wanted, like, that was, like, one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to make this video. I wanted to throw out my opinion. So, for those of you that are maybe newer to the Guild Wars 2 community, so in the early days of Guild Wars 2, I mean, there was not a lot of maps released. Okay, there was up until season 2, we only had 1 additional map released. Okay, so as you guys, now that season 1 has been re-released, you guys can kind of see there hasn't been new maps, right? There was never any new maps, so a lot of people kind of got bored because there were no, like, there was only at the time 2 level 80 maps. Right, it was Cursed Shore and then Frostgorge Sound, which isn't even a fully level 80 map, right? So the end game, quote unquote, was like doing dungeons and then doing doing stuff in Cursed Shore, and that was it, right? So a lot of people were like, "What the heck's going on?" Because for like 2 years we only got like 2 more maps, right? Or 3 more maps, which, you know, 1 of the 3 maps is never used. No one goes there anymore, right? Which is Southdown Cove. Like, no one goes there. So people wanted maps, right? So then ArenaNet, I feel like over the last like 8 years, they've released so many maps, guys. Okay, you can go through right now. If you have a character that has been on every map and just kind of go through and see how many level 80 maps there are so many of them. And I think only bringing 2 maps with an expansion is a fantastic idea, because I think it gets to the point where now in End of Dragons, because the rewards maybe aren't as strong as in other maps, it kind of like no one goes there anymore, right? Like, or not as many people. I know a lot of people that have told me that they played through End of Dragons and haven't been back to those maps at all, right? They go to like Arborstone to maybe do a strike, okay, and that's it. They don't explore any of the other places. They don't care for achievement points. They don't want to go anywhere. And I think it's just because we have such an overload of maps, right? We're getting new maps all the time, and I'm kind of happy with that, because if we're thinking about the story, and you know, we travel through 4 maps every, like 4 or 5 maps every expansion, I think it doesn't put enough emphasis on each of the maps. I think it just kind of like, oh, okay, we're here, we're doing 3 story steps, and we're getting through the map. Like, when you look at Heart of Thorns, for example, and Tangled Depths, like, they could have just left that whole part out, and it would have been literally not felt any different. There was just that whole story in Tangled Depths, like, nothing really happened there. You could have left that out, that map, and the story would have been exactly the same, right? So I feel like obviously there were some important parts in there, right? Obviously, but you know, I just, the point still is that I think having it only with two maps, I think, and then kind of focusing on those 2 maps for the story and stuff, I think it's just going to enhance the experience of each map. I would love to have the story explore each map more than just traveling through it real quick to get to the next map or get to the next, you know, chapter or whatever of the story. 2 strike missions, which they have doubled down now really on strike missions. Do I like strike? I do like strike missions. Again, it's not really what I like to play. Again, I'm more of like the story and the fluff crap, you know. So, but I do enjoy playing strike missions once in a while because they're just quick. They're very fast. You can just jump in, play one, you're good to go, right? So I like those. New gameplay and combat features. Again, kind of hopefully core weapons. I'm hoping core weapons. Like, I'm hoping more core weapons. New gameplay features. I don't know what that means. You know, the mastery system is kind of a mess right now, and I would love for them to go back and maybe uh, like look at that again maybe, and kind of you know, redo some of the stuff. But then they mentioned new masteries, so I don't know, and new rewards. I don't know. You know, fashion wars is like the end game, so I don't know. In the following quarterly updates, we'll add another open world map, additional story chapters, challenge modes for the strike missions, a new fractal, a dungeon, and challenge mode. This is a really exciting. I will tell you guys that fractals in particular is something that I think is fantastic. I love the way that fractals are. I love the way that it teaches you, because of the way that the tier system works and the way that, like, you know, levels from 1 to 100, right? That it kind of teaches you mechanics as you go along. You become a better player if you play like each level one at a time with a group of people, even if they're not teaching you necessarily. But you know, if you're like learning as you go and you're not ignorant to say like, oh, well, this is too hard, I don't know, this why is this so hard, right? No, if you go in and you say like, I want to learn this, I want to be good at it, I think it's fantastic. Like I love fractals, and I'm a huge fan of like the randomness of it as well. It could be anywhere in the world at any point in time, which is just fantastic because you never know where you're gonna get, and I really love it, and I'm super excited for a new fractal, and I've been waiting on a new fractal for a long time. So I love that they're working on that. Challenge modes for strike missions, always nice to see that additional. So this is kind of like this is what the new, I feel like this is what the new living world, the additional updates after each expansion, I feel like this is what they're gonna look like. Okay, this is like kind of a preview of what they will be looking like. Okay, because they're talking about like 2 new open worlds, 2 strike missions, blah blah blah, right? So here they're doing 1 open world mission, additional story chapters, challenge modes for the strike missions, you know, that type of stuff. So I think that's what we're kind of looking for. If making the expansion a little bit smaller, and, you know, making only 2 maps and maybe not adding lead specs, but giving us fractals and maybe more strike missions and stuff, I think that's a good balance. I think that's, I'm willing as a pure PvE player. On most part, I've been doing a little bit of World vs. World, I will tell you guys that, but I don't really SPVP, and I don't, like I said, I don't do hardcore endgame stuff. I don't raid, I don't do any of those things, right? So as someone that is pure, like, going through the maps and like, oh, look at all the things, you know, I like to look up, right? I always tell people, look up. You see all the things up, and no one looks up. Everyone always looks at the ground. Look up, okay? But it's just kind of like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with giving up 2 or 3 maps or whatever per expansion if we're gonna get fractals and strikes and maybe a raid. Like, I think Arena needs to realize we need raids. So I hope that raids are still on the table somewhere. New rewards. Again, they talk about new rewards again here, and it's like, new rewards, what does that mean? To the new systems introduced in that expansion. I mean, new systems, we have the Jade bot that was introduced. Other than that, I don't think the fishing, I mean, the fishing is just kind of a side thing. That's not really, while I hate fishing, I know a lot of people do enjoy it. So once the expansion is complete, next one will be just around the corner. So they're kind of like trying to do like, hey, this year we're doing an expansion here, and then this year and then next year we're doing this expansion. So I think they're trying to do like a yearly expansion. I could be completely wrong, but it sounds like once an expansion story is complete, so let's say they release a new expansion in January, right? And then they're like, okay, you know, 4 or 5 months down the road, like in May or whatever, they release the additional stuff, the extra stuff, right? Like let's keep with 3 months that they used to do, right? So it's like, okay, January, and then at the end of March, maybe we'll get like the first open world map with the strike, and then we'll get 3 months down the road, we're getting another map. Then the rest of the year they're maybe doing like balance updates and like world versus world updates and blah 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 blah, like random stuff, but working in that year for the next small expansion that's coming out, and then in the next year in January they're doing another expansion. That's kind of where I could see this go. Again, if they can keep up with the cadence, good. If they can't, it's gonna drive me freaking nuts. Keep up with your cadence. If you're putting a cadence and you're telling us what it is, keep up with it, because you're gonna frustrate the player base, and that's just annoying, because you kind of you know, I'm not saying like, oh my god, you need to schedule around me, but as a content creator and for the people that are partners and stuff like that, they kind of like, they map their content around like, oh, this is gonna come up or this is gonna happen, right? And then it doesn't happen. It's kind of like, okay, cool. All right, next chapter arrives in 2 weeks, guys. In 2 weeks, we have the next chapter. So Detective Rama, a new location, so it's somewhere in the Jade Sea, which is interesting. I did a video on what I think season 6 will be like. I think from the point of End of Dragon's release to now, probably, I'm guessing ArenaNet has kind of changed on what they wanted to do, because I feel like I'm still on point with what I said with all the names popping up in the world map and having very detailed areas where the names are being the new locations, but they're not doing that. So I think they're just kind of like, they kind of stepped away from that, and then maybe, I don't know, I think they kind of were like, you know what, this is not feasible, we need to change it right now, and we need to not do all of this, right? So the story will conclude a few months later with an update that introduces additional playable space to the map. So kind of like what's that map that we had that expanded, Drizzlewood Coast. So they're expanding the map further. I like getting a Jade Sea map. I hope they're not doing like Drizzlewood Coast was all about a meta event and then like expanding that meta event. I hope it's not like that, because I would have really enjoyed Drizzlewood Coast having random events happen that don't have to do with the meta, and maybe having a little bit more of exploration and going around and doing certain things, blah blah blah, whatever, right? But having a map just solely focus on a meta event is kind of, I'm not a fan of it. So I hope that it's a map that has a bunch of random events and so on and so forth, right? And anyone that has End of Dragons will gain access to this content. So that's kind of what they're going with. They're not trying to do the like, oh, you can unlock this in this season and that and that. I think because they realized that the living world being, you know, for people that don't log in at the time, has to be separately purchased, is keeping away people. And I think, you know, they've probably been looking at data from like Steam and even, you know, from new people coming in and stuff, and the complaints that they've been getting, and, you know, the feedback and stuff, and they've realized like having that separately, having the living world separately from expansions, and, you know, kind of explaining to people what it is, and then just having an additional like paywall there, I think is kind of keeping a lot of people from getting the expansions, getting into Guild Wars 2, and they're stepping away from that, which I think is fantastic. I hope that they will still look into maybe having Season 2 be bound to the core game, and then having, you know, if you purchase Heart of Thorns, you get Season 3, and if you purchase, I don't know, is that how that works now? I haven't been paying attention to that stuff, because I've owned every single release since it came out, so it's been something that I haven't really followed. But I think having those tied to each living world, to whatever expansion they're based on, having those tied together when you purchase them, I think is just the smartest way to do it. I know they're going to lose out on money on that, but I think in the long run it makes it easier for the player base and makes it easier for everyone involved, you know, and because it's so weird and convoluted with the way that Living World was working up until now, that they're taking that away is fantastic. And I think they realized, like, you know, we need to do that. We have this beautiful picture here of whatever this is, right? Platforms, people have been talking about, like, it was probably a strike mission. This looks very strike mission-y, right? With all the, like, void stuff going on. This is, like, void stuff, guys. The black goo coming up, that's void, okay? So we're still dealing with void. I'm thinking we're dealing with whatever is, like, whatever Suwon kept away in the ocean. If you guys kind of are into the lore, so the Leviathans are actually part of whatever is deep in the ocean. So there was something besides Swan deep in the ocean. Swan was deep in the ocean to protect us from something down there. She kind of like kept something at bay, that now that she came up to Cantha and she spent her last, years up in Cantha, it kind of has been coming up, right? The what are they called? The underwater people, Largo. There's a Largos, right? In the maps, in the End of Dragons map, that talks about the changing tides and stuff. So there's something coming from the ocean, guys. So people talked about how these look like mouths, right? There's like, to me, this looks like a giant maw kind of thing that's kind of pointing downward here, with like, I don't know, maybe from far away it looks like that, but there's a mouth here, there's a mouth here. I will point out, these are worm-like things. It's not just a mouth, but it's a worm, okay? These are like these are probably Leviathans, I'm guessing, from in the Jade Sea. Because this looks like little claw hands coming out, and this looks like the little prickly things on the side here from the worm. Like when you look at this is clearly like a worm kind of creature, and this looks this looks like it's going back in there as well, kind of like that. So I'm thinking there's something with Leviathans or something, maybe a Leviathan taken over by Void or something that we have to fight in here. I love how it's coming, the ley lines are coming out of the mouth, but that's kind of like, because, everything is made out of magic in Guild Wars 2, right? So that's like the I don't want to say it, but it's like the midichlorians of Star Wars, right? Like the Force, right, is made out of like, midichlorians or whatever, right? Which I know is like a huge debate thing in the Star Wars, fandom or whatever. Which is, whatever, that's a whole different discussion, but it's kind of like, that's it in Guild Wars 2, right? Like, the whole world is made out of, like, magic, and, that's what the Elder Dragons kind of consumed. So having a creature that died here, maybe that had, like, a lot of magic, or absorbed maybe a lot of magic from the Jade Sea, kind of, like, be frozen and die here, and then having the magic come out as, like, a ley line, or having a ley line kind of go through it or something. It's kind of a cool idea, I think. Alright, so anyways, in the first half of the year, we'll release the Suwon Legendary Weapon Skin Variant Collection, which I'm excited for, because as some of you might know, water is my favorite element. I do love using a lot of water stuff, and having a weapon set that's water-based lets me play a different profession beside Elementalist, and look cool with water. So I can make a warrior that looks like watery with the weapons, and I'm really excited to work on getting that. So I'm excited for that. 2 profession balance updates in the first half of the year. They want to do 2. So I think today's, because today's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. That's why my hair is pink, and I'm gonna have to wash it out before I go to work. This is just a colored wax, by the way. So this is not my. I can change my color to whatever I want. I have a bunch of different, but 2 profession balance updates. So we have one today, and then I guess we're getting another one before the 6-month period of the year, I guess, is coming. So today's is already pretty good. I looked at some of the stuff. Nothing really where I'm like, oh yeah, woo, I'm so excited. But I think a lot of stuff I'm like, okay, all right, that's pretty cool. It's just like some, nothing, I don't know, nothing crazy, I think, but good enough. A new Fractal Dungeon. The new Fractal Dungeon is coming for this before the 6 months of the year. And challenge mode. Multiple updates to World vs. World. Multiple updates. And Grouch has talked about doing World vs. World beta events. I'm so excited for those, because the Alliance update is something that needs to happen desperately. As someone that is on Blackade and that is constantly matched up against Maguma when we reach tier 1, it is frustrating, and it is something that you guys can go back and watch my older streams. It is frustrating beyond belief dealing with Maguma, okay? It's not fun, okay? And I can't wait, okay? We'll be rolling out direct a Chromium embedded framework. I don't know what that is. I'm not technical like that. Like, I know my technology. I'm pretty good, but I don't know what this is. But I'm guessing that's a good thing. Our usual festival and bonus events. Usual festival. Please give us more for super adventure boxes here, please. not just another weapon set, okay? It's like we have every color of the rainbow at this point with this stupid weapon set. I want something new. We also have some quality of life updates in the works. Yay, always good. ArenaNet, one thing that they do fantastic is quality of life. And when I see them talk about some quality of life updates, I'm like, oh my god. Like this one right here, where you can queue up for PvE maps. Oh my god, that's so good. Are you kidding? That is amazing. And that's just one of the things. I'm like, oh, it's good, great. I love it. I love everything about it. So here's a look. So we have the profession update, World Object reward scaling. I haven't tried this out. I logged in earlier, kind of looked at some stuff, but and then Chromium embedded framework upgrade. Again, I would have to actually look to see what that means. I have no idea. 28th, we have this new map and story content, which I'm so excited for, and I hope that I can get my streaming equipment all good by then, because I will be streaming the new map, the new story, all that fun stuff, okay? Super Adventure Festival, they don't talk about anything new in there. And then the upgrade complete. So they're going to be done with DirectX 11 by April, okay? So that's gone and done with, and good on them. And then May 2nd, we're going to have another balance update. That's nice. I mean, you know, we get a lot of stuff here, we get a lot of stuff here, and then it like fizzles out, where it's like, we don't get a lot of stuff here, we don't get a lot of stuff here, we don't get a lot of stuff here. Is there going to be other things? Maybe they haven't fully, like, they don't want to set, like, okay, this is what we're going to add, or this is what we're going to do, or whatever, right? So maybe they're still going to do some other stuff there, you know, whatever. We don't know yet. We'll be working on what's to come in the second half of the year. So I'm excited to see when the new map comes out. I mean, I feel like this is somewhat a bare bones roadmap. I feel like there's not that much, but we have a new story content, which brand new story content we haven't had since last year, February last year. So having this come out is fantastic, because having a new map is going to keep everyone kind of quiet. I know a lot of people have been very anxious, especially the people that have been playing for 10 years, that, you know, season 1 was just like not new content. It's just like kind of rehashed older content. A lot of people are getting anxious for new stuff. So having a map with new legendary variants coming, I think is kind of is going to keep people a little like, okay, you know, we have something to work on for the next few months until we get some more stuff. So we're excited about the next phase. Both the things we were able to share today and what's just over the horizon, the challenges we've outlined will allow us to provide a better experience to our fans, release new content updates more consistently, please, yes, ensure that Guild Wars 2 will be around for many, many years to come. So yeah, so this was Game Director Grouch. Yeah, so that's kind of like my opinion on some of the stuff. I just kind of wanted to go through it with you guys, share what my thoughts were, and yeah, and I hope that you guys are excited for Guild Wars 2. Like I said, I do have stuff coming, because this is very light. We're just getting like kind of stuff here and stuff. It gives me time to work on stuff that I've been wanting to work on for a long time. And I know people have been asking for reviews of games. I don't really do reviews, but people did ask for that, and my reviews do get the most views. So I'm going to be working on some game reviews as well, I think. No promises there really, but I do want to work on some regional lore stuff for Guild Wars 2, which is something I've talked about, and something concerning the elite specializations specifically that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So those things I'm working on, guys. And like I said, I do have shorts coming out, Guild Wars 2 shorts I'm hoping every Friday. Again, no promise, but usually Fridays I'll have a short come out, and that's kind of the plan, at least. I know I have one coming out this Friday, and yeah, and Grandia 2 is releasing, and like I said, I am trying to get my streaming back up, so if you guys are interested in that, please make sure to follow me over there and hang out and let me know what you guys thought. And thank you guys so much for watching, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys!